Tucker Carlson opens the conversation by emphasizing the significance of working in an environment one considers beautiful. He reflects on how much satisfaction and pride derive from building and creating, whether it's physical spaces or professional projects. Creating a space that reflects one's values is not just about aesthetics, but also about clarity of thought and spirit. Carlson believes the ugliness prevalent in modern life is purposeful, designed to confuse and muddle clear thinking, contrasting sharply with spaces that inspire contemplation and truth. This appreciation for meaningful work extends into his broader philosophy about purpose and responsibility. He discusses how satisfaction at work and being proud of one's workplace should matter profoundly to everyone. However, Carlson notes that these ideals are expensive and often unattainable for most people, but to him, investing in something meaningful like a fishing camp or a lifelong project is far more valuable than superficial spending on vacations or luxury items. Carlson repeatedly characterizes the world's turmoil as a spiritual war. He admits having underestimated this aspect until recent years, but now perceives that understanding this spiritual dimension is essential for grasping current global and domestic dynamics. According to him, most troubles stem from unseen forces influencing human actions, making it critical to see beyond the material to the metaphysical struggle between good and evil. He connects this spiritual war to the behavior of individuals and institutions, highlighting how hate strengthens evil. Carlson warns against hatred as a response to the opposition since it only empowers malevolent forces. Instead, he advocates for love, acceptance, and cheerfulness as the antidotes to evil's advance, viewing these as powerful spiritual weapons that undermine destructive intent. Drawing heavily on his own experiences, Carlson articulates the crucial role of mission and duty in a man's life. He speaks candidly about his retreat into solitude and the temptation to disengage from societal battles, but he ultimately returns to the conviction that every person has a mission. This mission often requires sacrifice and persistence despite the absence of visible results or immediate rewards. He invokes biblical and historical examples to show how failures and humility often lead to deeper understanding and renewed commitment. Carlson insists that a man's obligation is to tell the truth and strive for good, regardless of the personal cost or the possibility of failure. The metaphor of planting an oak tree, knowing one won't see it grow, captures his belief in the importance of contributing to a cause larger than oneself, even if its fruits are invisible in one's lifetime. Both Carlson and his conversational partner express deep frustration with the political system. Carlson relates his experience of knowing many politicians personally, yet not understanding or trusting the political process. He describes the system as broken, corrupt, and largely ineffective at serving the needs of ordinary citizens. The pervasive dishonesty and betrayal by those in power create cynicism and discourage meaningful participation. Carlson also discusses the experience of some leaders who become captives to corruption or coercion, losing their integrity and freedom as a result. He mourns the departure of the best and most honest politicians from the system, highlighting how even the most well-intentioned are often frustrated into either leaving office or compromising their principles. One of the most intense and controversial subjects Carlson touches on is the deliberate demographic changes targeting white populations in Western countries. He observes that white majorities are rapidly disappearing in nearly every predominantly white Western nation except Russia, a process he asserts is driven by deliberate policies rather than accident. Carlson frames this as a global and systemic effort to erase white identity through immigration, cultural indoctrination, and even government-sponsored suicide programs like Canada's MAD. Despite his opposition to racism and his rejection of supremacy ideas, Carlson takes a strong stance against what he describes as a racial hostility aimed at whites, a topic often suppressed or labeled as taboo. He expresses alarm at the internalized self-hatred among white populations and their leaders, considering it dangerous and destructive, calling upon the audience to acknowledge this reality openly. Carlson is passionate about the fundamental importance of free speech and the spoken word. He argues that controlling what people say is the primary goal of those who seek to dominate society. Suppressing truth-tellers, censoring dissenting voices, and weaponizing language are tactics employed to ensure control. He contrasts these tactics with the enduring power of words, pointing out that what one speaks aloud can outlive them and change minds across generations. He believes that the current culture wars and political battles often revolve around speech more than policy. The strategic targeting of individuals who refuse to be silenced is evidence of this dynamic. Carlson reaffirms his commitment to truth-telling as the most important and potent form of resistance against tyranny and societal decay. Discussing generational grievances, Carlson highlights how younger populations, particularly young white men, have been betrayed economically and culturally. He cites enormous student debt, high housing costs, and widespread economic insecurity as key factors driving frustration and distrust. The system, as he describes it, is rigged in favor of lenders, real estate moguls, and financial institutions at the expense of honest young workers who struggle to find meaningful opportunities. Carlson draws an analogy between drug addiction and debt, suggesting that society punishes debtors while ignoring or enabling predatory lenders. He critiques payday loan interest rates of up to 600%, calling these exploitative and immoral. The economic stranglehold, combined with societal disdain on traditional masculinity, fuels alienation among youth, driving many towards radical or fringe political figures who voice their discontent. Carlson made a deliberate decision to interview Nick Fuentes, a highly influential but contentious figure among young men in America. His rationale was to provide a platform for Fuentes to tell his story and clarify his views, rejecting the idea that public opinion should be shaped solely by media clips or secondhand accounts. Carlson is clear he does not endorse all of Fuentes' beliefs but recognizes his role in reflecting legitimate frustrations about political betrayal and cultural displacement. He explains the backlash he received for this interview, noting the weaponization of accusations like anti-Semitism are used to silence reasonable discourse on foreign influence and political fidelity. Carlson defends their conversation as honest and necessary, emphasizing his own rejection of hatred and bigotry. The episode illustrates the importance he places on open dialogue for understanding complex social dynamics. Throughout the dialogue, Carlson mourns the prevalence of lying within institutions, governance, and media. He argues that honesty and transparency are the foundation for trust and legitimacy, yet contends that lying has become systemic and routine. Carlson decries the double standards where truth-tellers are punished and liars are rewarded or overlooked, creating a culture of cynicism and despair. He holds firmly that even in the face of overwhelming deception, individuals have a duty to pursue truth relentlessly. The fight against lies is a spiritual and moral imperative essential to preserving civilization. Carlson's own life and career exemplify this struggle as he continually attempts to speak difficult truths despite substantial opposition and personal cost. Carlson attributes much of the darkness he perceives in the world to genuine spiritual evil. He discusses how the violation of innocence, as seen in sex trafficking and exploitation, represents the core nature of demonic activity, the destruction of purity and beauty. This perspective elevates social issues from political or legal matters to cosmic battles that demand deep moral seriousness. He highlights how destructive forces aim to corrupt, defile, and spread chaos to undermine creation and order upheld by good forces. Carlson draws upon religious and philosophical traditions to frame this worldview, seeing the current crises as episodes in an eternal struggle between light and darkness that humans participate in knowingly or unknowingly. A critical humanitarian concern Carlson raises is the widespread existence of sex trafficking and exploitation, particularly facilitated by online platforms and social media. He shares detailed accounts of disturbing trends, including sinister online cults coercing young girls into degrading behavior, self-harm, and even suicide. Carlson condemns these activities as manifestations of moral and spiritual bankruptcy that seriously threaten youth and the fabric of society. He criticizes large platforms like OnlyFans for their role in normalizing and promoting the commodification of young women's bodies, equating it with organized satanic activity due to its damaging impact on innocence and civilization. Carlson expresses frustration with law enforcement's difficulties in securing adequate resources and political support to address these challenges, calling out local government officials for failing to fulfill their protective roles. Carlson reflects extensively on the psychological and financial importance of homeownership, recounting how paying off his mortgage transformed his sense of freedom and responsibility. He critiques modern debt structures, including 50-year mortgages, as double-edged. While they may help some afford housing in the short term, they can also lead to long-term financial entrapment. He champions ownership as a vital form of empowerment that roots individuals in their communities and nation, creating a personal stake in society's success and order. Carlson sees the overwhelming role of finance and real estate in the economy as signs of imbalance and warns that economic systems built on excessive debt and speculation are unsustainable and contribute to wider societal instability.